Rugby is a staple in South Africa. Here, the game to locals is what the NFL, MLB, and NBA represent to the people from the United States of America. It's what cricket represents to the people on the subcontinent and what football is to Europeans and South Americans. Here, rugby rules supreme. I'm Robert Adams in Cape Town, South Africa. In this special edition of Beyond the Game, we'll explore the game's complexities and its history in South Africa. We'll also have a look at grassroots development and the growing of the women's game. South Africans love rugby, and rugby loves them. Young, old, girls, boys, on the sidelines cheering, all at the heart of the action. It would seem that when there's a rugby ball in the immediate vicinity, South Africans become other people entirely. Mesmerized, spellbound. The high-flying national team, the Springboks, have given junior players the belief that they too can represent their country on the international stage one day.
Rugby is everything to me.
It is my dream to play for the Springboks one day.
Well, not everyone is 100% sold on the idea.
I just want to also play for New Zealand because those women are tough.
One thing is for sure though, in a country where people's daily struggles include erratic electricity blackouts, skyrocketing food costs and high unemployment, rugby does seem to be playing its part in uniting the nation. Rugby is enjoying a wave of success in South Africa. In fact, the country is still very much on a high after the Springboks' record 4th World Cup win.
But it's over! It's over! It's a 4th Rugby World Cup for South Africa!
With 3 William Webb Ellis trophies sitting pretty in the cabinet at SA Rugby headquarters, the latest acquisition was shown off to hundreds of thousands in major cities around the country. The nationwide trophy tour capped a demanding 20-odd weeks on the road.
It's great to be back in Cape Town, obviously with our people, the welcome we've received.
So I'm just grateful for being part of this campaign and obviously this experience here.
The Boks have been in high demand since their World Cup triumph in Paris.
The excitement has just built and we are pretty much inundated. Requests are through the roof.
The Springboks have also dominated news cycles around the globe.
The Springboks have done it. The South African power game got them over the line once again.
Mama Joy was here to take the trophy back home, South Africa.
And reporters who have closely followed the team's journey over the years say their news value cannot be underscored.
Sometimes they felt far and almost like they're untouchable just from a fan perspective, and now it feels like they are authentic and real, and you can touch the magic, you can feel the magic.
They all have unique stories, and I think the basis of that has brought about a Springbok team that is global appeal, that everybody flocks to, wants to hear their stories.
The Boks have also been very good for SA Rugby's coffers, posting record revenues of $80 million.
Our professional teams are the cash cows of South African rugby. 90% of our revenue generated by participating in international events.
The organisation has pledged to continue investing sizable sums of money in rugby development, a topic we'll explore in a lot more detail later in the programme. South Africa may be the darlings of world rugby right now, but things weren't always rosy. And to get a fuller picture of the struggle to get to the top, we have to go right back to the beginning. Rugby enjoyed a popularity boom in the late 1800s and early 1900s. South Africa also got a taste of the game, and pretty soon they were hooked.
Another international rugby when the Springboks crossed the border and Scottish fans flocked to Murrayfield to watch their 15, unfamiliar in white shirts, give battle. But apartheid policies in the country at the time meant there was sports segregation. Black people were largely excluded from participating. In the 60s and 70s, there were worldwide calls to boycott the country's apartheid sports teams. The 1981 Springbok tour of New Zealand drew widespread protests there, which lasted for nearly 2 months. It was clear New Zealanders wanted the Springboks to stay home.
I know you don't like talking about demonstrations and politics, but how much does that worry you?
Well, of course, you know, it's a reality, and you have to take this in consideration.
But from what I can gather, you're going there to play rugby and to make friends.
Quite right.
International isolation set in, and South Africa was banned from the first 2 Rugby World Cups in 1987 and 1991. The Boks were readmitted to international rugby in 1992. 3 years later, they won the World Cup on home soil. There was one black player in the Boks squad that triumphed over the All Blacks at Ellis Park on June 24th, 1995. His name was Chester Williams.
For me, it meant a lot because I'm representing my country, as I said to you. Being the only coloured as well there, helping my community to tell them that they must believe that they can also get into the Springbok side, no matter the skin of the colour.
Williams, who had an immense impact on South African rugby, passed away in 2019. He is credited with paving the way for so many other players of colour to realise their dream of becoming Springboks. Players like Eddie Andrews, a Springbok front rower from 2004 to 2007.
Sure. A Mitchells Plain Boetjie, standing there in Bloemfontein, representing your country, play against Ireland, and realising, Robin, that I'm not just representing myself, but I'm representing the hopes and the aspirations of many people that look like me and that come from communities where I've come from. And that's why people often ask me, why did I cry? I cried because of that, realizing that this moment right here, it's a lot more than representing my country, but also what the benefits and the paradigm shifts that it can be realized in those communities across the country.
Winger Brayton Paulse also credits Williams with blazing a trail for players of colour.
An icon like Chester certainly kept me going.
Paulse says his foray into the national setup was a baptism of fire.
In the first year, especially when we went overseas, it was all about, when I had to face the media, they will ask me, Brady, what's going on in your country, about, the politics, what's going on with sports people. And that's the stuff that, obviously, at the time, black and coloured players had to deal with, unfortunately. But I knew it was also important. The one at Manchester, we were lying in bed and we were talking about life. I said to him, I'm now at crossroads. Do I carry on because it's not becoming nice to be a Springbok? It's becoming difficult because of the political connotation that's with it. I didn't sign up for that, And Chelsea said to me, Brights, we're not doing this now for us. We're doing it for the next generation to follow.
There were good times in South African rugby and there were bad times. Brayton Paulse was there for both.
Erasmus Paulse throws a move. He's over for a hat-trick. Brayton Paulse, hat-trick on debut, and isn't that marvellous to watch?
Including one of the darkest days in the nation's sporting history. Kamp Staldraad in 2003. Translated, it means Camp Steel Wire, or more to the point, barbed wire. It was the military-style training camp for Springbok players that plunged South African rugby into crisis. Staldraad was an extreme survival camp, shrouded in allegations of psychological torture and even reports of live ammunition used by the camp masters, who were special forces operatives.
There was a lot of bad blood, players weren't happy, and it was just a failure over here in my Springbok career. It was something that it was so old school, for me. Obviously today we can laugh about it, where it's almost like a guy in the army, who's like a general, and he just give out orders. And you just have to follow it. No, it doesn't matter if you're now gonna stumble or you're gonna even die if you like, you just gotta do it, otherwise you're out of there,
South Africa's 2003 Rugby World Cup campaign ended in failure. A quarter-final exit at the hands of New Zealand. For all of SA Rugby's success afterwards, The Kamstaldra debacle left a long-lasting stain on its legacy.
Grassroots development has long been a buzzword in South African rugby circles, but the issue is a lot more complex. For starters, it is about the haves and the have-nots. The haves have the advantage of pristine pitches, top-class facilities and equipment. The have-nots can barely get players to their training sessions because those players don't have taxi or bus fare to get there.
This is Langa, home to the Western Cape's oldest rugby club, Busy Bee. The township team is 101 years old. Club director Alfred Msutu Kewana cuts a lonely figure at the training ground on the day of filming. Not a single player has pitched for training. He says they simply could not afford to come, and that's not the club's only challenge.
This is our home ground, but we have to show this field with the cricket, which now in the pre-season. Recently we've been playing the Sevens tournament, so the boys got nowhere to practice.
The pitch looks like it's seen better days. But Kewana says it doesn't dampen the enthusiasm and passion of those associated with Busy Bee. The club has delivered some well-known Springbok players.
Later in the years, when I came in, we got also Jongi Nokwe, the guy that got a history of scoring 4 tries in one game against Australia. And then there was a World Cup of women in France, where we got our Springbok, our first Springbok as a woman on the women's side, which is Abanele Makwezela. She played 13 and she played very well. I'm proud of her.
About 25 kilometers away, you'll find Collegians Rugby Club in Mitchell's Plain, another classic example of the have-nots. It's a challenging journey into the team's grounds. Here, criminals have left their mark in more ways than one. They've stolen nearly everything, even the perimeter fencing and stadium lights. Club president Shamila Sulaiman tells TRT World that they've not played a home game in over 3 years.
We've had vandalism from within the area. We've also had negligence from the city of Cape Town, unfortunately, in terms of the upkeep of the facility. We've been tenants here for decades. The club is 48 years old. We're quite high up in the echelons of Western Province Rugby in terms of performance for a community club, and might I add, from a sub-economic area at that.
Mitchell's Plain is one of the most dangerous suburbs in Cape Town. Home to around 300,000 people, shootings and stabbings from gang violence are commonplace here. These are often followed by retaliatory attacks. It has many residents living in fear. And the latest crime stats make for grim reading. Mitchell's Plain accounts for the 3rd highest number of serious crimes in the country, with 2,291 cases between July and September 2023. In that same 3-month period, there were 855 contact crime cases, which include murder, attempted murder and rape. Mitchell's Plain is number 1 in South Africa for common assault, with 400 cases. 83 robbery incidents were reported last year, and 262 cases of malicious damage to property. The police seem to have a difficult time maintaining law and order in the area. Amidst the ever-present danger, Collegians aims to be a safe haven for the nearly 400 players and management staff affiliated with the club.
Everybody who is at the club is here for the badge, for the colours, for the evergreen legacy of the club. But every year, in spite of all the difficulties and the challenges that we face, our numbers increase every year.
Who are we? Who are we?
Sulaiman says the local council has promised to pump $600,000 into restoring Collegians' grounds to its former glory. There can be no doubt about the importance community clubs like Collegians and Busy Bee play in the country's rugby ecosystem and the local competitions in which they participate. Tournaments like this one, the Mamri Sevens, where players from across the Cape compete for trophies, prize money and the attention of those who could help shape their professional careers.
The OK Mamre Community Sevens is a perfect opportunity for young talent, raw talent to be discovered. We've got scouts and agents all over the arena here.
So the agent provides young talented athletes with opportunities, professional opportunities, whether it is with a union or a franchise or an international club. As an athlete, there's some things that you can control and others that you can't control. Injuries are part and parcel of sport, and especially in a contact sport like rugby. So to provide these athletes with the right medical aids and advice and surround myself with experts in different fields.
Botan says the Western Cape region is a breeding ground for talented rugby stars of tomorrow, a feeder for the Springbok setup.
Rugby is everything to me. I wake up every morning with this fire in my heart. I just want to get better at this sport. I know what rugby does for the community. It makes it better, and in everyone's lives too. It really means so much to me. As you can see, here's a lot of people here just for the sport. And I would love to run out for the Springboks one day and plow back into my community.
Grassroots development has long been a topic of discussion in rugby circles. Is enough being done to develop the game in South Africa? And who should be doing it? Those are the big questions.
Thank you for the who should be doing it, because if we're looking at the we, it will be both interested and affected stakeholders, because that's important. We need to ensure that all fields, all schools on the Cape Flats and informal settlements has an actual field, has an irrigation system to maintain that field as well. And also, I think part of the we would be corporate South Africa, that they invest in those communities and sustain that interest and the support over time.
I think grassroots level, we are still failing rugby at this moment in time. We are not playing enough rugby at schools.
It's true that less than 20% of our public schools in South Africa have an active sport program on a weekly basis. I believe this is where Department of Cultural Affairs and Sport, Department of Basic Education need to do more.
There are a lot of children that need to have access to sport, not to rugby, to sport in general. And those are the ones that really, when I sleep at night, it bothers me.
There's been increased interest in women's rugby in South Africa, especially since the women's sevens team qualified for the Paris 2024 Olympic Games. But those in the know say a lot more needs to be done to promote and grow the game in the country.
The excitement around women's rugby in South Africa is palpable. It's on the faces of players, coaching staff, and fans.
And on the right.
And you can hear it in the voices of the matchday commentators.
This is Test match rugby. This is women's rugby. This is history.
The 7s and 15s game in South Africa is enjoying a boom, with more competition scheduled and more international assignments on the cards for the Springbok women's teams. Young players say they're inspired.
I enjoy rugby. I have been playing for 2 years now. It is my dream to play for the Springboks one day, and I hope it will come true. I will do my best.
What about you?
Rugby is a sport that I enjoy. When I'm at the field, I get my mindset right. I am always training, and my dream is to become a junior Springbok player.
The consensus seems to be that a lot more money is needed to grow the game.
One can only lift the standards of whatever we currently do when we are able to have more resources, more people that are qualified and experienced to do the work, facilities that are accessible, that are decent, that are saying, as you walk into it, women are welcome.
SA Rugby President Mark Alexander agrees.
We're not getting corporates to back women's sports. Everything you do around women's game and exposing the women's game, you need to have corporate sponsors.
Anissa Adams is a self-confessed rugby addict. The 27-year-old has been involved in the men and women's game at the local level. Adams is currently the head coach of the University of the Western Cape's women's team. She also believes women's rugby deserves more financial support.
Yes, they have given them equal screen time, they've given them equal opportunities, but yet we are still not paying them enough. So they need to have additional jobs and they need to train in the evenings.
SA Rugby say they have a plan to attract potential sponsors. They're in talks with government to promote two key ideas which they hope companies in South Africa will find appealing to their bottom line. One, give corporates a tax break for investing in women's sports for the next 5 years. Two, classify women's sport as a corporate and social investment responsibility, or CSI.
So we can broaden the base quickly, but also give the exposure very quickly by companies who sponsor.
But they will need the buy-in from National Treasury. More exposure, more money. More money, more rugby programs. Something women's rugby coach Danver August believes would benefit at-risk youth.
You see, at the moment, for me, it feels like we don't have a lot of mentors when it comes to women rugby. And then also, when women playing rugby, you create an environment whereby girls are feeling safe.
The hope is, with the right backing, these youngsters could become future big-name stars.
Transformation has been a process that has divided opinion in this country. Government and various stakeholders had been pushing for national sports teams to be more reflective of the country's racial makeup. South African rugby was also scrutinized and criticized in years gone by because the Springbok team in a country that was predominantly black was lily white.
SA Rugby's transformation plan kicked into gear in 2014. The goal was to have up to 50% black player representation in competitions like the Currie Cup and Super Rugby, and then ultimately the Springboks. And government kept a watchful eye on progress.
Morally, because it is the right thing to do, considering the grave injustices of the past, and strategically, because of the reality that 84% of the country's under 18-year-old population grouping is black African and only 16 is white, colored and Indian.
Several Bok coaches came and went. They struggled to get the requisite number of black players, at least 7, into their starting lineups. Many say it was when Rassie Erasmus took over in 2018 that the national team got a lot more diverse. Erasmus announced Siya Kolisi as captain, the Springboks' first ever black skipper.
All I want to do is do well and play well and inspire not only black people, South Africa.
Erasmus went about the business of transforming the Bok team by trusting his black players and allowing them ample game time.
We undervalue the players we have here. I think we've got wonderful players, and I think sometimes we take too long before we select certain players.
And he was always clear that transformation was not a black in, white out scenario. It was an organic process that delivered results. Wins against England, New Zealand, the British and Irish Lions, and of course, 2 World Cups. More black players came through the ranks to earn a place in the national team, though Erasmus will tell you that the Bok team transformed itself.
8-5-1.
And many say it's his biggest legacy in the sport.
I think any young kid out there, aspiring like rugby player, if they see that kind of performances and they see how diverse our teams are, and if that is a means to create hope and instill hope within our country and our communities, I think that is the goal achieved.
Johan Rassie Erasmus, part-time dancer to his sizable social media following, full-time rugby brain to fans everywhere.
At this time, I'm so in love with this country and the way we do things and the way they support the Springboks that I can't think of a nicer job to have with all the pressure and all the other stuff.
Many will say if Rassie's at the wheel, the game in South Africa is in good hands.
It might seem like just the other day that the Springboks lifted the Webb Ellis Trophy in Paris, but the World Cup winning players are already back with their respective clubs involved in competitive matches. It might also feel like 2027 is some way off, but SA Rugby has confirmed they're already busy with World Cup planning. The fans say they are ready for the build-up towards that particular showpiece. The players that we've spoken to say they are inspired by their Springbok heroes and ready to put their best foot forward in the hopes of being discovered by talent scouts at events like these. All in all, the good times look set to continue in South African rugby. Let's continue the conversation online at TRT World on X, formerly Twitter. My personal handle is Robin Adams ZA, ROBIN Adams ZA. Thank you for watching and see you next time.
The playing field at the time was not evil. Did I say evil? I meant equal.
Oh, my mates, we never see this. We never see this, Robin. We only see shorts, brille, or flip-flops.
The game will be done, sorry.
Okay. It's just, yeah.
Racial makeup of the country. I forgot my next lines.
It's great stuff here.
Yeah. I am feeling